How mitakuyepi. Kai, you. I stand before you today not just as one man, but as a voice carried on the wind from generations past. I speak for the peoples of the plains, whose lives were woven into this land, long before the first ships touched the eastern shores. Our history is written in the flow of the rivers, the paths of the buffalo, the sacred circle of life under the vast sky. We lived in balance, understanding our place within the creation given to us by the Great Spirit. Wakanti Anka. Then the newcomers arrived. They called themselves Americans. They spoke of friendship, of peace, of sharing this land. They brought papers marked with ink, which they called treaties. They asked us to touch the pen, to make our mark, promising that these words would bind us together in honesty. They promised boundaries that would remain fixed like the stars. They promised protection. They promised that our way of life, our sacred lands, particularly those like Paha Sapa, the Black Hills, the heart of everything that is, would be ours forever. We, who held a spoken promise as sacred, who believed that a man's word was his honor, we listened. Perhaps we were naive to believe that words on paper held the same weight for them as they did for us. Perhaps we could not comprehend a world where solemn vows could be discarded like worn-out hide, because the ink was barely dry before the promises began to fade. The boundaries they drew shifted like sand dunes in the wind. When gold was found glittering in our sacred Paha Sapa, the treaty that guaranteed it to us became an inconvenience. Suddenly the paper meant nothing. Armies came, not to protect us as promised, but to drive us out, to take by force what they could not gain by honest agreement. Treaty after treaty followed the same path. Fort Laramie, Medicine Lodge, names on paper that became symbols of betrayal. They promised annuities, food, supplies, if we moved onto smaller lands, onto reservation. Then, those supplies often failed to arrive, or were rotten, or were stolen by corrupt agents. We were expected to become farmers on land that often refused to yield crops, while the TTE, Oyate, the Buffalo Nation that was our lifeblood, was systematically slaughtered, not just for hides, but to starve us into submission, to break our spirit by destroying our sacred relatives. They took our children, sending them far away to schools where their hair was cut, their language forbidden, their names changed. They tried to sever the roots of our identity, telling us that our ways, our spirituality, our connection to this earth were savage and wrong. They called us hostile when we defended our homes and family. They called us rebels when we refused to disappear quietly. What is justice when one side holds all the power and writes laws designed to break the other? What is honor when solemn agreements are violated whenever they become inconvenient? The history between the United States government and the Plains tribes is a litany of broken words, of land stolen, of lives shattered, of a systematic attempt to erase us from existence. They speak of progress, of manifest destiny. But whose progress? Whose destiny? Was it destined that solemn oaths be treated as lies? Was it progress to decimate the herds that sustained us? Is it progress to confine a free people and attempt to strip them of their soul? We remember. The land remembers. The blood spilled cries out from the earth. The promises made echo in the empty spaces where the buffalo once roamed. We carry the weight of these broken words in our hearts, in the stories we pass down to our children. We are still here. Our cultures endure, though wounded. Our languages struggle to breathe again. Our connection to this land, though scarred by fences and borders, remains in our spirit. We ask not for pity. We ask for truth to be acknowledged. We ask for the honor that was lacking in the past to be shown now. We ask for the treaties, those that remain, to be respected, not just as historical documents, but as living agreements between sovereign nations. We ask for the United States to look honestly at its own history, at the foundations upon which its westward expansion was built, foundations often cemented with injustice and betrayal. Only when the truth is faced, only when the weight of those broken words is fully understood, can there be any hope for true reconciliation, for a future where promises are finally kept. Until then, the wind will continue to carry the whispers of injustice across these plains. We listen, we remember, and we endure.